So when I was a busy doctor looking for my next path and just seeing what else was out there, there really wasn't a lot. There was a site that talked about non-clinical jobs and maybe would have some postings. There is a conference across the country that I could go to where maybe they would have speakers who would enter different opportunities. But that was about it. And then dramatically, probably in the last year or two, things really have exploded. There's a lot more information out there, and it's almost gone to the point where there's maybe too much information. And that's what I was so glad to hear that a couple of family docs had put something together. It was a membership site where you could get your questions answered and be mentored by people who've already done that and at a very affordable price too. And I wanted to know more about what they were doing about this. It's called the Clinical Careers Cooperative and put on together by my next guests, John Jurica and Tom Davis. And they're going to talk about what this program is all about, just for you guys, on this episode of Bootstrap MD. Hey guys, it's Dr. Mike Lumeng. Welcome to another edition of Bootstrap MD. We've got a first here. I know I'm late to the Zoom thing, but I've never had multiple guests on. So with the era of technology, even this 50-plus-year-old can finally figure out how to do it. So on the podcast, as if you're watching, we've got these two gentlemen, both family doctor trained. Actually, we're all family doctors here, but I don't think anybody is doing this full time. And part of it is because we've gone into different careers. And that's what it's all about here today, is talking about clinical doctors, physicians who are interested in other ways, whether it be starting a new job in a non-clinical career or starting your own business, consulting, you name it. This is why we brought these two gentlemen on the call today. They started the Clinical Careers Cooperative, if I got that right. I call it the Triple C, and it just launched. They're going to talk all about it, and more importantly, why you need to join it. And privileged to have on the call with me is Dr. Tom Davis and Dr. John Jurica. Welcome, guys.
Thank you.
Good to be here.
Oh, you guys are suddenly silent. This is amazing. So,
good to be here.
I'll go ahead and talk now. We've had John Jurica. If you've been following me on the Bootstrap MD podcast, I've had John on it a couple times, and you've probably seen his name out everywhere. He just shamelessly promotes like no other doctor that I know. But you may not have been familiar with Dr. Tom Davis, who comes from Missouri, I believe, and is also is that right?
Yes, it is. You're right.
Awesome. So I'm a little thrown off by the Hawaiian background, but we'll kind of figure it out, and we'll kind of figure out what that's all about. But him and Dr. John Jurica got together and started this Clinical Careers Cooperative. We're going to talk all about it. But Tom, I would like to introduce you first. I just introduce your story. I know you're family physician trained, but now you have a very thriving consulting business among the many things that you do. So Tom, let us know more about you on the call today.
Well, thanks, Mike. And I want you to know that I too shamelessly promote, just probably in a little different circles than other folks. I'm a board certified family doctor, and I came out of my residency in 1994 and joined a teeny tiny single specialty group right out of residency in rural Missouri about the same time that we signed the first total risk Medicare Advantage contract offered anywhere in the country. That was 1994, if you would imagine that.
Wow.
I was very fortunate. Nobody else knew what to do with it. So finally, they let our little teeny tiny practice. My partners were just very far-seeing. And 18 years later, we sold the health system that we created on the back of that contract and others like it to a regional competitor for $132 million.
Wow.
And I use that number to impress the business guys. But what should impress everybody who's listening is the fact that for 18 years, I got to practice medicine like I was trained to, with autonomy. It was like I was a small town doctor. I got to do what was needed. It was like dancing on air. So after I realized that an employed situation was not a good fit, I decided to go out and teach, mentor other clinicians and businesses and insurance companies, health systems, and how to do what I did. And while I was doing that, I got to rub elbows everywhere across the country. I mean, everywhere, with a bunch of very, very unhappy doctors. And I also got to see how they were treated, because when the boardroom door closes and you're standing in the back of the room, they kind of forget you're a doctor, and they think that you're a business person or a consultant. And some of the things that I saw were horrific, for lack of a better term. And so I decided to dedicate some of my time to help clinicians who did not have the opportunities I did, kind of pay my good fortune forward, and help them navigate in alternative worlds. One of the benefits, Mike, of doing what I did is I got to rub elbows with a bunch of venture capital types, and they gave me a heads up 8 years ago that they were going to start lobbying the state legislators to expand telemedicine authority. So I got in telemedicine pretty early and created my own telemedicine practice as an independent contractor. And I teach clinicians how to do that as a great way to kind of decompress for their first couple of years off the treadmill as they try to decide what they do. And now I'm also working on helping clinicians start their own cash pay practices through a variety of vehicles. So it's really just I feel kind of like Forrest Gump sometimes. I kind of go where the wind blows. I've just been fortunate to be there before the wind starts blowing.
Now, are you still practicing medicine, or is your other ventures kind of taking that away from you?
I am, absolutely. I supervise nurse practitioners, and I practice telemedicine 10 hours a week. I try to live the life that I advocate and I mentor in. That way, one, it makes me a better mentor, just like practicing medicine makes us all better doctors. But two, it also kind of demonstrates that, I'm not just blowing smoke. I mean, you should never take advice from someone who they themselves is not free. And so I'm free to do what I want. And I'm hoping that convinces some of these just terribly impaired physicians who are just trapped on the treadmill to actually look up, look around, and see what else is out there.
Thanks, Tom. And I hate to take the spotlight away from you, but John has been needling me. But, he's got a lot of fans of John Jurica out there. And
why do you think I partnered with him?
They've been clamoring. They want to know, we need more John Jurica. So, John, for the 7 people who don't know who you are, can you tell us in a nutshell who you are? And interestingly, how did you guys two meet up and start this?
Okay, let me give you my quick intro, and then I'll tell you how Tom and I met. How it's sometimes hard to remember those things when they go back a few years. But I'm a family physician. I worked my way into my first full-time non-clinical job as a senior VP and chief medical officer for a hospital. Did that for a few years, and I got tired of it, and I wanted to do something entrepreneurial. So I opened an urgent care center, and when I did that, I had a little more free time. So I started doing a blog, which led into my podcast, which is how a lot of people know me. And then shortly after I started the podcast, I got involved with a Facebook group called Physician Nonclinical Career Hunters. So that's pretty well known. There's almost 14,000 members in that group right now. And then more recently, I opened a Nonclinical Career Academy, which is a paid site. Of course, the podcast is free. And then Tom and I went into this new venture. Now, how did I meet Tom? Okay, Tom, I don't know that I met you at the SEEK meeting. You might have to remind me, but we've known each other for a couple of years. We've been sort of talking about doing something together. And then you came up with this fantastic idea that we can talk a little bit more about in a minute. But do you remember how we actually first met?
We met at SEEK, and then you invited me on your podcast, and then we just kept in touch, and we started talking about this approach of scaling, helping doctors, and it's just taken off from there. It's all in your partners. Well,
and by the way, I've had Tom on my podcast twice, and I think I've just scratched the surface of the things that he's done over the years. He's written a bunch of books, not all of which that he's released yet. He does his telemedicine thing. He's doing consulting. He's working with startups. So it was a pleasure to work with you, Tom, once we came up with this plan.
Yeah, so he had to go up the business because he wants to know more about this man of mystery. So, and revealing the secrets, I gather. So for those who don't know, I think everybody knows what SEEK is, but it is a conference for doctors pursuing non-clinical careers. Now, were you guys attendees? Were you speaking at the event? How did that, what was the situation there?
I'll start. I was attending, and I was basically sort of lurking. My main role and reason to go there was to find guests for my podcast at the time.
The secret is
He's
out.
laughing at me. That was it, and it was full of people that I met, and half, if not more, I have been on the podcast. And then, but Tom, it was one of the mentors. So maybe you can tell him more about that in any presentation.
I attended it about 7 years ago when I was figuring out that I was a bad fit for employment, and then so I mentored frequently there since, and I believe that's where we met. So yeah. It was a great program. I really enjoy it.
So when did the situation happen where you were thinking about this idea of the Clinical Careers Cooperative? Tell me the genesis of that.
Tom, that's you.
Oh, I was just thinking about it. I thought about Seek, and I thought it's always about scaling. The last time that I was at Seek before we started, before John and I started this, I was struck by the number of residents and yes, even medical students that were attending. It was shocking to me, shocking. And, Seek only does that once a year, and it's a great model, but there are some ways that it can be tweaked. And really the need out there is so compelling that, and the barrier to go into something like an offsite conference, they're important because they commit you to making a change. But on the other hand, it really excludes people who maybe aren't there yet and really might slow down their progress. So it was the idea of scale. And I knew that if I was going to scale, I needed someone with John's reputation and expertise. And I'll tell you a Jerry Seinfeld story. He was at a network party filled with suits, and you can get this on YouTube where he talks about it. And he just is very uncomfortable in that situation. And in the corner, he spied none other than Chris Rock. So I went right over to him and grabbed his shoulders at the same time he grabbed mine. We both looked at each other's eyes and said, "Comedian." And they were both comedians, so they both could let down their hair around each other. Well, John's a family physician, and I work a lot with specialties and administrators of business folks. So John, being a family physician, even though our product is pointed to the broad spectrum, John being a family physician really helped me unlock some of the creativity, and I believe that I've done the same for him.
John, I'm now going to call you the Chris Rock of non-clinical.
Okay, that's okay. I like that. I should be so funny.
So you had this idea, and kind of behind the scenes, I've known John for a while, and one of the reasons too, it was he also, I believe you were thinking about a membership site, but you've got your Facebook group. But I knew you had some reservations about being on Facebook, even if it's a paid Facebook group. You want to share that with the audience?
Okay, this is mine, right? I had a couple of concerns. First of all, there are different kinds of Facebook groups. I'll just go through these very quickly, but the two major that I see are a single owner. So somebody starts a Facebook group, you have an individual who may be an expert, a coach or something, or something online that they're selling, and they have this group. So that kind of limits the members of the group to that person's expertise. So if they want to get a lot of different opinions, they have to go to multiple groups. They may end up joining 5, 10, 15, 20. Now that person that owns that group can sell in that group. Now, on the other hand, you have the group that I'm involved with as an admin, and that is massive group. Anybody can come in after passing, a few barriers, making sure they're a physician and so forth. But there's absolutely no promotion allowed in our group. It's one of those large kind of promotionless groups. You can chat, you can support one another. And so you've got that. And so for me and other mentors that are in there, and there's a number of coaches and mentors in the Facebook group that I talked about earlier, they really can't sell in there, but they can gently sort of softly sell. And if people like their comments, they can track them down and do that kind of thing. The other thing about a Facebook group is it could go away anytime. I mean, even a private Facebook group or your own personal group, Facebook changes the rules. It used to be pages were big. Now pages are not so big. Groups are big now. Groups have been shut down. So those are just some of the reasons that, after talking with Tom, we thought, well, one of the things that'd be great about having a cooperative, an online forum, something of that nature, is that it would be a little bit more private. There'd be no way that anyone could shut us down unless we wanted to shut it down. We can have a lot more designated mentors, and we can recruit mentors to it. So unlike my Facebook group where, they just kind of lurk out there and they may or may not show up. And then the other thing about this kind of forum is that you can find things a lot easier because we have designated topical areas and threads that you can go in anytime. You can find what you need. You can search on it. In my Facebook group, it's almost impossible to find a thread from 6 months or a year ago. I mean, it's not built for that. So those are some of the reasons I think that Tom and I discussed and when we were trying to put together how this thing would work.
Well, all right, we're going to take a quick break, but if you've been following me for some time, you know I'm a big believer in what I call the 3 types of income that every physician should have, the trifecta, as you will. You've got your active income, that's your doctor's salary. You've got your passion income. As an entrepreneur, you've got a business that you can believe in, that gets you excited. And then one of the most important components is that passive income. That's income that's bringing in money that's working for you while you sleep. And if you're like me, you get targeted by all these different financial schemes. We all know about it. And you don't really know what to believe in and what not to. Well, these guys over at Money Insights you'll definitely want to check out because I 100% believe in these guys. Christian and Rod over the gang over at Money Insights have got a really cool financial model that works perfectly for physicians. In fact, they almost work exclusively with physicians. If you want to find out more about them, go to bootstrapmd.com/money. That's bootstrapmd.com/money. They'll tell you all about it. You'll be watching a couple of videos that really kind of educate you, and it's no obligation when you're ready to talk to them. So go to bootstrapmd.com/money, find out more about it. I really can't say much more about it, but just let them know that Dr. Mike sent you, and I think you'll be pretty happy on the results that you're going to have with them. So let's talk about the Clinical Careers Cooperative. Tell me, it's a membership site. It's got lots of different forms. What can they expect when they join?
Well, what you can expect is a safe environment where you can connect with a broad spectrum of mentors that John and I have curated, as well as reviewing the collective wisdom of all of the conversations that have preceded you. So unlike other social media groups, the threads don't disappear. They're going to be there, and you're going to be able to peruse them. The subscription feature is intentional. One of the challenges with the free Facebook groups is that they don't challenge you to take the next step. Free Facebook groups have a role, but unless you put just a teeny tiny amount of skin in the game, you really are not likely to take the next step. And the idea behind having a low but a nominal but real hurdle, financial commitment is so that you engage. And then it's John and my job to make sure that the environment that you're in is generating value for you.
Yeah, and I mentioned this on a recent podcast too. That or you either post. It's like people say, well, you can get everything for free. Everything's free on the internet. I can find this on YouTube. I used to do some free calls, and most of my consulting is now paid, but I'll do like a free, initial call where I would just kind of open myself up and just looking at the numbers, and let's say for every 10 free calls, maybe one person will actually take action. And the idea of having skin in the game really, engages that person. And the other thing too is, you go, no offense to, on your Facebook groups, but people could be given free advice and completely doing the exact opposite of what they're doing, or they're just saying on what they've read. They've not actually been doing it. And I like what you said, Tom, is like one of the reasons that you're still kind of in the game is you're living the life that you want to lead. And if you weren't, then you would be considered, a fraud, right? So that's the importance that I believe about having a paid membership versus free. Any thoughts on that?
Well, Mike, I want to emphasize the point you just made. As I said previously, the people that are mostly employing doctors now are business types, and they are not looking out for the interest of their workforce. And John was very passionate about having this be owned and created and operated by clinicians, not just for physicians, nurse practitioners, PAs, dentists, whatever the patient care specialty that you have, but it's run by your fellow clinicians. John and I are not looking to squeeze every last nickel out of you, okay? We're here because it's our personal mission to serve. And we are trying to create the best possible site where we can help you do better. And that is something that is absolutely missing from the social media platforms. Even the ones that are run by clinicians themselves, they're not really properly vetted. I think that they have their place, but the cooperative was meant to be the next level where you know that you're among peers. Because as we all know here, is that the system has failed the clinicians, and the only people that are going to help clinicians do better are your fellow clinicians.
I love it. I love it. So let's talk about maybe like who would most benefit from this, or perhaps we can talk about what are the topics that we're going to be seeing here in the CCC.
John?
Well, I'll start the topics if I can remember half of them. I don't have the list in front of me, but we have some general topics at the beginning that are just welcome, and just career transition in general. Then we have specific topical areas on medical science liaison, hospital-based management careers. I think that, of course, there's one on telemedicine, which, by the way, you might want to just go in there for that alone. Because, Tom, how many posts have you put in that telemedicine forum, Tom?
50, something like that.
I mean, he's put a lot in there, and he's been really chronicling, I think, from what I understood, what I read of it, some working within COVID environment, the pandemic, and then just sort of all the kind of things that come up while you're doing telemedicine, the nitty gritty, the little pearls that you learn only by doing it. And so that has been, I've read about half of those, and those have been awesome. We got one on locum tenens, which is a popular clinical but sort of unconventional career. Let's see, utilization management, medical writing. What am I missing, Tom?
Medical spas, speaking, and entrepreneurship, venture capital, consulting.
And coaching. We have coaches in there not only to serve as coaches or guides for the members, but also coaching is an awesome career for physicians. You get a lot of all the good and like none of the bad. So it's not, I'm not surprised by the number of physicians who, when they transitioned out of clinical, they went into some form of coaching.
That's awesome. And I know I'm one of the mentors, and can you name just a few of the other mentors that you've got participating in this?
Yeah, I've got a list right here, but I'm going to try and go down most of the list here, because Andrew Wilner is the expert in locum tenens. He's written a book on it. He's also an expert in medical writing. Christopher Liu does real estate and consulting and passive income. Charmaine Gregory, I think I know her best as a coach, mostly fitness coach, and then I think also a life transition coach. Maisha Claiborne, I think your listeners know who she is. And then we got Phil Boucher. Maybe you can talk about Phil, and maybe also Jill, is it Weiner? Because she's one that Tom has brought on.
So Phil is a pediatrician, and he's also a physician coach and someone who helps people with their revenue stacks and develop different streams of revenue. And Jill also specializes in actually working with women clinicians and helping them with problems from that, challenges from that perspective.
And just to complete the list, besides Tom and I, we've got Lisa Jenks, Mandy Armitage, specialist in medical writing, Marjorie Stiegler, I think many of your listeners will know, branding and online business, Michelle Mudge Riley, the icon, I think you interviewed her recently, Mike. And I think those are the current ones. And I was going to say too, we've got already others that are asking to come in, and we're going to try to do some kind of vetting process. I mean, we're not going to be overbearing on this. If people are interested and they're legitimate coaches or they have some expertise, we'll include them. But we will definitely make sure that, they've been doing this for a while and they have the expertise, before we let them apply for member or as a mentor.
This is amazing stuff, guys. And what's so incredible is like, I'm even thinking, you know, Tom, I know you've been out for a while. I've been out for a while, you know, John, probably the last few years. This stuff wasn't even talked about. You know, it was like,
No.
you know, I've mentioned it many times, you know, being able to actually speak about this at a conference was almost considered taboo. You know, I remember speaking at a conference where it was pharmaceutical run, and said, well, we're just really more interested in doctors writing more prescriptions and promoting our medications, and nothing really about entrepreneurship, consulting, even locum tenens. You know, we really didn't even talk much about. So it's amazing to have that wealth of knowledge, and really, you're not going to find this in any books. This is people actually doing it. I think that's was part of your vetting process, is you guys are actually doing this stuff. You guys have done it on your own. Now, you know, share your knowledge, you know, with the world and learn. And it's always something too. It's continuing to learn. You know, this type of information is continuing. You know, just about what we've dealt with in the last 2 weeks, right? We're all learning in these new processes. So we'll have a link to it, guys, for you guys to join up. I know at the time this is coming out, we're doing a special. You want to take advantage of it. I know it's a special pricing that you're doing. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I don't know how often you're going to have this low a price. Is it fair to say that this is probably the lowest prices you guys are going to offer?
Well, I'd say that's true. We haven't decided if and when we will raise the price, but obviously, because it's a chicken and egg, we have to get members, we have to get mentors. It's kind of just, it's the little startup now. So 6 months from now, when we have, you know, who knows, hundreds or thousands of members and 20 or 30 mentors, then, you know, things will be different. But the other thing I wanted to mention before we close is that to get people in, besides that very tiny cost and the 7-day free, you know, introduction that they can take advantage of, there's a bunch of bonuses that are going to be going away within about a week or so. So, I mean, we have some PDFs, some, you know, a thing that I wrote a while back, but I think the good ones, the really good ones are the $75 off to an upcoming course with Michelle Mudge Riley that you know about, Mike. 100% discount on one of Marjorie Stiegler's courses, 2 months to get into my Nonclinical Career Academy, 2 months free. That's worth about $200. And then you get the telemedicine mastery course that Tom has been selling for a year or so to people interested in telemedicine. And I think that covers it, that I know. And we're adding new ones, I guess, all the time. So you want to get in early just to get those, even if you don't hang around more than a few months. It's definitely worth it.
And just to throw things out too, sorry not to cut you off, Tom, I'll be adding a bonus to that as well, that I'll be sharing at the end of this call, that I will put onto this call to let you guys know what it is. But it's going to be something that is going to be very valuable. Tom, you're about to say something.
John and I have really gone as far as we possibly can, adding lots of value, especially as we're kicking off the hard launch. But the biggest barrier to this endeavor, to clinicians helping clinicians, quite honestly, is the clinicians themselves. And that this is something that is nowhere else on the internet. You can't find it anywhere else. And so it's important to understand that the mission of this is to help peer clinicians, because nobody else inside the system is looking out for clinicians. And even if this might not be something that you're totally interested in, or you're kind of in the pre-contemplative phase, I urge you to stop by, take a look, subscribe for at least a little while, and help support the site. Not because John and I are looking to make a buck off of you, because believe me, we're not. It's because this is new, and we are in a new world, and the only structures that are going to work are new ones. And so I just ask everyone's listening to check us out, give us a subscription, help us make the site better, and to be the change that you want to see in the world. If not for yourself, then for somebody else.
I love it. And I think you also have an important point in that anytime you're in the beginning of something, there's definitely some uneasiness, but you can help set the curriculum in terms of what you're asking. And I know for myself, when I have a question on something and I put it on the internet, I don't really know where to go to. Sure, you could go to Facebook groups, but you don't know who's actually responding, if it's actually true. I can't even find half the questions in what Facebook groups that I'm in. No offense again, John, but there's so many different Facebook groups that are out there. Knowing that there is a site out there, if I've got a question at 2:00 in the morning, it'll be answered relatively soon with a team of physicians in a whole bunch of different genres, whole bunch of different experiences that you can be sharing. I know, Tom, you and both of you are contributing and answering questions, but you've also got that team of mentors there to have your back, so to speak. So I appreciate you guys taking the time. I know, Tom, you're ready to go back, dip into the water there on the beach. Any final words before we end the call today?
I'm going to let John finish up. He's more erudite than I.
Oh, really? Last comments, is that what you're saying, Mike?
Yeah.
Is that what yeah, I mean, you can go and spend a lot of money on coaching. I love coaches. You can go and just go to the free Facebook groups, but if you could join with other clinicians in a very low cost, friendly, safe environment, I encourage you to do that. The other thing I would say is that, Tom and I know, are committed to helping our peers get out of the rat race. I mean, it's just, it breaks my heart when I see my peers suffering, whether they're burned out, if you want to use that term, whether they're just taken advantage of. The new grads coming out, they don't even know how bad they have it. And we wanted to create something that is going to be there to help you, give you some hope, and actually some hand-holding and some concrete advice and guidance as you try and figure your career out.
Dr. Tom Davis, Dr. John Jurica, thank you for sharing your knowledge and wisdom here with us today. If you guys want to join, we're going to leave a link. I'll have a special bonus that we'll be talking about as well, that once you guys join, this is the best time to join. Most of us are at the time of this video. We're usually holed up. Now's the time to take advantage of online education. This is the time to improve your skills, improve your knowledge, improve your career. If you're not liking where you're at right now, there are people who can help you. First place to start, the CCC, Clinical Careers Cooperative. Thanks, guys. It's been a pleasure.
It's been fun.
I as well. It's been fun. I'll get back to the beach.
Get back to the
Take
beach.
care. Bye-bye.
If you guys listening, thanks again for listening. And as always, keep moving forward. Well, all right, guys, I hope you enjoyed that conversation I had with Dr. Tom Davis and Dr. John Jurica, telling us more about the Clinical Careers Cooperative. I will be a mentor, and if you'd like to sign up, I encourage you to do so at bootstrapmd.com/CCC. Now, that is my affiliate link. I do get a little bit of a commission on that, but I support these guys in what they're doing, and I will be participating as a mentor from that. And if you join up, I've got a special bonus. As mentioned on the call, it's called My Roadmap to a Non-Clinical Career. It's a checklist that I put together that really kind of just need to follow down the line, that I think in about 30 to 90 days, if you're interested in having a non-clinical career, it's a checklist that you can follow to make sure you're not missing any vital details. Just a special bonus for you for joining up. Just go to bootstrapmd.com/CCC.